on, just wherever, it doesn't matter right now.
It won't stick.
Okay, take it off, whatever. Just when I come, just hold them out. Okay, you ready?
Yep.
For the most wild yet most homely narrative which I am about to pen, I neither expect nor solicit belief. Mad indeed would I be to expect in a case where my very senses reject their own evidence. Yet mad I am not, and very surely do I not dream. I married early and was happy to find my wife with a disposition not uncongenial with my own. Observing my particularly for domestic pets, she lost no opportunity of procuring those of the most agreeable kind. We had many pets of all kinds, from a goldfish to a cat. This latter was remarkably large, beautiful, entirely black, and sagacious. In speaking of his intelligence, my wife, who at heart was not little tinkered with superstition, made frequent allusion to the ancient popular notion which regarded all black cats as witches in disguise. Not that she was ever serious upon this point, and I mention this to be remembered. Pluto, this was the cat's name, was my favorite pet and playmate. I alone fed him, and he tended me whenever I went about the house. It was even with difficulty that I could prevent him from following me through the streets. Our friendship lasted in this manner for several years, during which my general temperament and character, though the instrumentality of the fiend implements, had experienced a radical alteration for the worse, but my disease grew upon me. For what disease is like alcohol? I suffered myself to use intemperate language with my wife, at length even offered her personal violence. My pets, of course, were made to feel the change in my disposition. I not only neglected to ill-use them, and at length even Pluto, who was now becoming old and consequently somewhat peevish, began to experience the effects of my ill temper. One night, returning home, much intoxicated from one of my haunts about town, I fancied that the cat avoided my presence. He inflicted a slight wound upon my hand with his teeth. The fury of the demon instantly possessed me. I took out my waistcoat pocket knife, opened it, grasped the poor beast by his throat, and deliberately cut one of his eyes from the socket. I blush, I burn, I shudder, while I pen this damnable atrocity. When reason returned with a morning experience, a sentiment half of horror, half of remorse, for a crime which I had been guilty, I soon drowned in wine all the memories of the deed. In the meantime, the cat slowly recovered. The socket of the lost eye presented a frightful appearance, but he no longer appeared to suffer any pain. He fled in extreme terror at my approach. I had so much of my old heart left as to be at first bruised by this evident dislike on the part of a creature which had once so loved me. But this feeling soon gave place to irritation. Beaming from my eyes, and with the bitterness remorse at my heart, hung it because it knew who had loved me, and became, I felt, even for no reason of offense. Hung it because I knew that in doing so, I was committing a sin, a deadly sin that would soon jeopardize my immortal soul as to place it, if such a thing were possible, even beyond the reach of the infinite mercy of the most merciful and most terrible God. On the night of the day which this cruel deed was done, I aroused from sleep by a fire. The whole house was blazing. It was with great difficulty that my wife and myself, our escape from the conflagration. Then, moving, the destruction was complete. On the day succeeding the fire, I visited the ruins. The walls, with one exception, had fallen in. I approached and saw, as if graven in vast relief upon the white surface, the figure of a gigantic cat. The impression was given with an accuracy truly marvelous. There was a rope around the animal's neck. hung in the garden adjacent to the house. Upon the alarm of the fire, this garden had been immediately filled by the crowd, by some of whom the animal must have been cut down from a tree and thrown through an open window into my chamber. For months I could not rid myself of the phantasm of the cat. One night, as I sat half stupefied in a den of more than infamy, my attention was suddenly drawn to some black object. I approached it and touched it with my hand. It was a black cat, a very large one, fully as large as Pluto, and closely resembling him in every respect. Upon my touching him, he immediately arose, purred loudly, and rubbed against my hand, and appeared delighted with my notice. When it reached the house, it domesticated itself at once and became immediately in great favor with my wife. For my own part, I soon found a dislike to it arising within me. Its evident fondness for myself rather disgusted and annoyed. What added no doubt to my hatred of the beast was the discovery on the morning after I brought it home that, like Pluto, it also had been deprived of one of its eyes. It followed my footsteps and with something which it would be difficult to make the reader comprehend. At such times, although I longed to destroy it with a blow, I was yet withheld from doing so, partly by a memory of my former crime, but chiefly, let me confess it at once, by absolute dread of the beast. I am almost ashamed to own the terror and horror in which the animal inspired me, but had been heightened by one of the merest chimeras it would be possible to conceive. My wife had called my attention more than once to the character with the black hair. It was now the representation of an object that I shudder to admit had killed, and for this, above all, I loathed and dreaded, and would have rid myself of the monster had I dared. It was now, I say, the image of a hideous, a ghastly thing of the gallows. O mournful and terrible engine of horror and crime, of agony and death! I started hourly from dreams of unutterable fear, to find the hot breath of the thing upon my face in these vast waves.
That's 8 minutes.